Okay, I was asked to convert up a project. This is a request from a surveyor, and he wanted the entire project, so I'm going to export the data, the plan sheets, the project, and the to design folder out. And so this is the first step because we have project-wise. I typically like to export the files out and put them into a separate location that's my location. So if I accidentally mess up the upgrade, I can always go back and export out the files again. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and export these out. I'm going to send a folder. I've got a location out on my temp folder here. C temp, go to survey, Southwest Tanny. I'm going to use that folder there. I also will export any reference files that are outside the project, and I put them into a folder called reference files under this Tanny County folder here. So once that's all set up like so, I'm just going to go ahead and hit next and export out the project. Once the project's been exported, you can see that it opens up the folder automatically and shows me the files here. I also have a reference files folder that had just a couple files in it. And typically what I do is I take that reference files folder and I just do a cut and I place it under the actual project as well. Typically, coming from SS10, this project folder has no DGN files in it. You could open it up and look through it, but typically at a MoDOT, with MoDOT, there are no DGN files in there, so I delete that folder because there's really nothing in it. And coming from survey, typically there's no plan sheets under the plan sheets folder as well, or any DGN files, but I'm just going to take a quick look, and sure enough, there's nothing there. So what we got to worry about mainly is the data reference files and the to design. Now, one thing you got to look at too, a lot of times the way certain districts do it at MoDOT, a lot of these files that are in the to design folder are also in the data folder. So you could filter out those extra files that are basically the same files copied from the data folder. But for now, for this video, I'm just going to leave them as is. So once we have them exported, what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and rename this folder, because we're going to upgrade it to 1010 first, version 1010 of ORD. We used to be in 1010 version, then we upgraded to 1012, and that's our current version. If I go straight to 1012 and I do a certain procedure on this upgrade, it tends to not like it. So I always have to do the 1010 version, upgrade them, and then I open up the files, I do a couple corrections, and then I upgrade them to 1012. And so that's what we're going to do here. So on my screen, I have a 1010 Civil File Manager. This program, I'm going to open up another Windows here to show you where that Civil File Manager is at. It's typically under the C drive. I believe it's under Program Files. You go to Bentley. Here's the 1010 and 1012 version. We're going to do the 1010. If you go into Open Roads Designer, and then you just scroll down, the file that I'm going to run is this one called Civil File Manager, and it's right there. Okay, and I've got a shortcut on my desktop, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on it, and it's going to open up again the 1010 Civil File Manager. Once that's open, you can just go ahead and do a file open, and depending on if you're just doing a single file, if you're just doing a bunch of files in a folder, or what we have here, we have a folder and a bunch of subfolders. So we're going to do that. And again, it's on my C drive, temp, vol, KV, survey, Tanny County, and it's that job number right there. So we're going to select that. And when you select that, it's going to try to tell you all the DGN files that are listed underneath those folders. If you want to, once you click expand that list out, you can also look at the schema details, and you can see this is mostly a Select Series 4 upgrade. Okay. And so once it's done like that, all you got to do is go to Action, Upgrade All, Force, and it'll start to go through there and start to upgrade. And it'll go through it one at a time and upgrade them. And every once in a while, this tool will quit working or stop or melt down. All you have to do is just restart the tool, pick the folder again, and start it again. And typically, it will continue on from where it stopped or melted down and eventually get through the entire thing. So that doesn't happen very often. Maybe, back in the day when I was doing a lot of these conversions, it might happen once a week. So, but you can see once it's done, you can move the dialog around. You can also expand out the versions again. You can look at the schema details, and you can see they've been upgraded to the 1010 version. Okay. All right, and also the ones that have no, I believe, no product version. There is nothing in the file or no civil elements in the file. So typically, when you're upgrading, the ones that have the version are the ones you're really worried about. So, all right. When you upgrade to a 1010 version using the Civil File Manager, what it'll do is it'll first make a zip file and put the original files in that zip file. And then here are the upgraded files right here. And so what I do is I'm going to open up my OpenRoads Designer 1010 release. I have all the releases here. I got 1010, 1012, 2023, and then 2024. But right now we're currently on the 1012 release. But again, this upgrade's kind of a two-step process where I got to upgrade it to 1010 first, open up the files, and then I will upgrade them to 1012. So I'm going to open up in 1010. And it's opening up on the other window, so I'll drag that over once it fully opens up. We're not in ProjectWise, so I can cancel this. Drag this on over. The workspace it wants to know, we're going to be using the MoDOT 1010 workspace. I'm going to go browse for the files. Again, they're under my C, temp folder, survey, Southwest Tanny. We're going into there, and we're going to start off in the data folder. And I'm going to, for this little video, I'm going to just do one that I know has survey data in it. This land boundary file has some survey data in it. This surface one probably has a terrain model in it, but let's just start off with let's go ahead and do this land boundary file. So we're going to open that up. And once it opens up, the things that I typically look for when I convert files up to 1012 ORD is the first thing I look for is a terrain model, if there's a terrain model in this file. So I do that using Explorer, and if it's docked here, I pin it and I pull out Explorer because you can adjust the size of it and make it bigger. Also, I drag out the properties dialog because it's always good to see the properties when you're clicking on things. And so the first thing to check for terrain model, I go to OpenRoads Modeler or OpenRoads Model. OpenRoads Model will pretty much tell you everything in this file, so I'm going to expand that out. And I do not have any terrain models. If I did, I would have a little arrow here. Next thing I'm going to check for is survey data, and the way I do that is go down to OpenRoads Standards, expand standards out, go to the active file, expand that out. And if I got survey settings here, that means I've got survey data. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to click on settings. And one thing you have to change when you're upgrading is, for whatever reason, under link codes, this space is required between field code. That needs to be set to false for the MoDOT setup in ORD. Okay, once that's set, I'm going to then update my feature definitions for survey and my feature symbologies for survey. If I didn't have any settings down here, survey settings, I just move on to the next file because there's no terrain modeling or no terrain models in the file or survey data, and I just move on. But since we have survey data, I'm going to go ahead and import the feature definitions for the ORD, because what's in here now currently is, if we expand this out and go down to survey, you'll see we got the MoDOT Power Geopack SMD file, which is the Survey Manager database that we used in the previous versions. We don't use the SMD anymore, so we're going to upgrade the feature definitions to ORD, and those feature definitions are not in this file currently. And so what we're going to do is we're going to import the feature definitions, we're going to import the feature symbologies, and once those new feature symbologies and definitions are in this file, we're going to come back and then start deleting the old stuff. And when we delete the old stuff, it will jump to the new settings. And there's a certain order you got to do this in, and it's the order I'm going to show you. So first thing I'm going to do is import the feature definition. So I'm going to right click, and you'll notice I do not have an import option here. To get the import option, there is a certain configuration variable that you need to set, and I'm going to open that up for you here real quick and show you which one it needs to be. And so you can get this a couple different ways. You can use the key-in command to get this. So what you do is come up here and type in key and get the key-in command, and that pops this up right here. If I go back to my text editor, then we're going to load the config variable. So we're going to copy that and place that in that key-in field, and we're going to hit enter, and that brings up our configuration variable dialog. And then the configuration variable that we need to activate is this one called civil standards. And so we're going to go back to over here. We're going to say new. We're going to type that in. Our value will be 1, and we're going to hit OK to that. Once you hit OK to that, we're going to hit OK to the main dialog box. We're going to save it. We're going to say yes. And once you do that, you should have under your feature definitions an input option. That's what we want. Another way you can get to those config variable dialog is going to the backstage, and I believe it's under settings, configuration, and then configuration variables. Okay. All right, so now that we got the input option, we're going to go to feature definitions. We're going to hit import. I have these feature definitions exported out from the DGN library. I put these on my, actually, sorry, they're under my documents work. And I've got them right here, local, or actually it's SS10 ORD conversion utilities. I'll include these in, or you can get these from me if you email me, and I'll include these back to you in an email. But I'm going to go to my feature definitions and symbologies. Here's the feature definitions that I need to import. It's basically all the survey settings, features, and element templates. And so I'm going to click on that. It says the path is too long, so I need to move that to a shorter location. This is something new at MoDOT. Our IS department must have done something because typically I've never had that issue in the past where the pathing is too long. So I'm going to go grab those settings. I'm going to copy them. I'm just going to put them on my C temp. I'm going to place them under the KV folder, paste. Okay, so now we're going to go back. We're going to do a feature definition import. We're going to go to C, temp, KV, SS10 utilities, feature definitions, and we're going to go to the feature definitions first. It's going to import those in. We're then going to go to the feature symbologies and import the feature symbologies. Once they're in there, we then start deleting the old stuff. There's two items in the feature symbologies. They're both called MoDOT Power Geopack SMD. We're going to delete this folder. Then we're going to go to linear. Again, we're going to delete the MoDOT Power Geopack SMD. We're going to close down feature symbologies. Then we're going to go to feature definitions and do the same thing. There's two of them. One under survey called MoDOT Power Geopack SMD. We don't want that. And then the last thing we need to do is go under linear MoDOT Power Geopack SMD. And again, what's going to happen is it's going to not find the feature definition or the feature symbology, and it's going to go to the one that's actually under survey. There's survey codes. That's where the new feature definitions reside, and same thing down in the feature symbologies. One last thing I always like to do is if terrain has a folder under it, the old settings are in this location here. The new settings actually reside just under the terrain option here. So if you see a folder here, go ahead and delete it because it has old terrain feature settings in it. So we're going to delete that as well. Once you get all those things deleted, we're going to go up to the active file. We're going to right click and do an update standards from dgnlib. And when you do that, your feature or your survey items all upgrade to the right symbology in ORD. Okay, once you're done with that, you'd move on to the next file. Again, you'd open up another file. You'll look for terrain modeling. If you see terrain modeling, you'll change the feature definition from an SS10 feature definition to an ORD feature definition. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you that while I'm got you on this video. So I'm going to do a file browse, and I'm going to browse for that item. The surface one has a surface in it, so let's go to that one. Again, we're going to use the 1010 configuration. Okay, when we go, again, anytime I go looking for terrain modeling, I go into the Open Roads model. I open this up. This time I do have a terrain model in there. It's called existing boundary. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the surface itself. I'm going to go over to properties here, and you can close down most of these tabs and just leave open the one called feature. And that's where we need to upgrade this feature definition, which is an SS10 one. You can see it's under a folder. All the new ORD ones are not under a folder like this one is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come down to where it says existing boundary and select that. Okay. I once again will look to see if there's any survey data in this file. So I'm going to go back to my Open Road standards. I'm going to go to standards. I'm going to expand the active file. We do have survey settings in here again, so I'm going to go through that process one more time. So I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to switch the space required between field code to false. I'm going to import my feature definitions. And when you go into it the second and third time, it typically remembers where these are at. So you just do import and go right to the folder, feature symbologies. I then go in and I delete. In this one, there happens to be no MODOT SMD file. If I go to linear, not there either. We go to this one here. There is none. So you don't have to worry about any survey items in this one. Even though there is settings, somehow they may have activated the field book but didn't import anything into this file. There happens to be no old feature definitions or feature symbologies in here, because if there were, you would see that MODOT Power Geopack SMD option, and it's not in this file. So I'm going to look at my terrain model. I do have an old settings in here, again under this folder. Anytime you see a folder under this terrain, get rid of it. It's old settings. So we're going to delete that. Once we're done with that, again, we're going to always update standards from dgnlib, and you should see this pink hue, which used to be the settings for SS10 back in SS10, but it should turn green for an existing boundary. So we're going to do an update standards from dgnlib. It's going to crank through that. You might have to give it a few seconds, but you should see that terrain model boundary turn to a green boundary, and just like so. So that's what you do when you have a terrain model upgrade, and also when you have survey data in the first file. You always import with survey, you always import the feature definitions and feature symbologies, then you go back and delete them in the order I showed you, and then you upgrade the DGN, upgrade the file from, or update the standards from the dgnlib. So once we're done upgrading the files, what you'll do is I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And I'm going to assume all my files have been opened up and gone through to check for survey data and terrain models. What you would do then is you would upgrade this file to 1012. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this folder just so if something happens I have a copy of it. And I'm going to call this one 1012. So I got my 1010 files that have been totally updated. Now I'm going to update them to 1012 using this folder here. So I'm going to again go to my Civil File Manager. And this again is located in the same location as the 1012 one, but in the 1012 version of ORD out on the C program files location. Again, I'm going to do a file open. Since this is a folder with subfolders, I'm going to pick that option. I'm going to go out to my C drive again. I'm going to go to temp, my initials. I'm going to go to survey, Tanny, and there's the 1012 that I want to upgrade. Again, I always like to expand this to see the files, how many files I got. And I always like to look at the schema details ahead of time, all the 1010. So I'm going to now go and do an action upgrade all force. When it's done, you really sometimes can't tell if it's done. All you got to do is try to move the banner. And if the banner doesn't move, it's because it's still working, and just kind of sit there and wait till the not responding disappears, or that the or wait for the dialog to move too as well if you tried to move it. So it just moved. Somewhere in here it'll say upgrade complete. It might be hard to find, but typically upgrade complete. Again, if you go back to the list, you go to the schema details, it did upgrade it to version 12. So at this point in time, what I would do is I would actually go through the 1012 folder, open up the files that have survey data in it, and I normally keep a list when I upgrade them to 1010. If I see survey data, I write that name down or highlight, or I have a listing of the survey files, because you got to do one extra step when you have survey files, and you got to do it in 1010 or in 1012, because there was a kind of a change that they did to the settings between 1010 and 1012, and when we upgrade them to 1012, that setting does not get set properly. So again, I go back to my start menu, I go to my 1012 version and open that up. Again, it's opening on the other window, so I'll drag that over once I cancel out of this. Again, I want to use the 1012 version. I'm going to go browse, again the same location as before, C, temp, my initial folder, survey, Southwest Tanny. We're going to go into the 1012 folder. I'm going to go into data. Once again, I remembered that the land boundary had some survey data in it, so I'll show you in that file what to change. And the only thing you need to change when you open these files up again in 1012 is this survey setting. It's the only setting that really changed between 1010 and 1012 as far as the MoDOT setup goes. And this change was something that Bentley pushed, and there's no way to get it to set properly. And the only way to do it is actually going in and setting it. So we're going to use the 1012 version here. So we're going to hit open to that. Once it opens up, we're going to go back to Explorer again. It's over here on the side. We're going to pin it, pull it out. It's easier to have it out here where you can expand it. I'm also going to drag out my properties as well, just like I did before in the 1010 version. And so this survey setting that you got to modify again is under the Open Road standards. Go into the active file, go down to survey settings, and it's under the link codes. And MoDOT, before they had this best match option, and it was either set to true or false. In this version, they actually have 4 options for best match field code. And so the one that works best for MoDOT is match start. Match alpha works okay, but there's a couple things it doesn't cover. Match start works is the one that we're using, and it works the best. And so that's all you got to do is change that to match start on any MoDOT configuration type file, or any file that's used using the MoDOT configuration. So once that's done, you can just move on to the next survey file and just upgrade that. And once you're done with that, then you're done upgrading to 1012. You don't have to open every file, just open the survey files, and we're going to close that down. Okay, so the next thing we would do at MoDOT is we'd put it back in ProjectWise, and I'm just going to put this in my training sandbox. So I'm going to close down the SS10. I'm going to go into the our ORD, active ORD data source, and I'm going to bring these on in. I'm going to bring them into my training sandboxes. This is just kind of a training video, so I'm going to go into one of my locations here. I'm going to go to survey. I'm going to go into south. Oh, I don't have a southwest folder, so I'm going to make one new folder, southwest. Oh, actually I do have one. Sorry, cancel. I see it right there. And I'm under my southwest. I'll make a Taney County folder. Okay, so I'm going to move it, the files that I just upgraded into Taney County. So I'm going to go back to my thing here, and I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop this folder into my Taney County folder. When you do that, you want to include the subdirectory, so we're going to bring that on in. Okay, once that's brought in, I'm going to go ahead and rename it so it doesn't have the 1010 on it, or 1012. And the first thing we would do is we would scan ref the files to reattach all the reference files in ProjectWise, because you can see there's no reference icon on any of these files. And typically there are some references somewhere, especially the files that are listed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up here at above the highest structure that covers all 3 of these folders, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to do something called scan references, and we're going to hit next to this. We're going to uncheck DGN link set. We don't need that. This is the location of the folder. I'm also going to check this, which is also the location of the head folder, which is the project number. Here I'm going to enable proximity search, which basically if it's scanning for references, say in the data folder, if there's a reference file down here, it'll scan the subfolders for the references. So we're going to do that, enable proximity search. If you had all your files under one folder, you wouldn't need this. You could uncheck that and just move on to next. But since we have subfolders, we're going to go ahead and select where this is at. And so this is in our central office, CAD support, I think. Projects, wallet. Actually, that's not the right location. Let me cancel that. This is under training sandbox. Sorry, let me do that one more time. Training sandbox, central office, projects, my folder, survey, southwest, Taney, and the job number. Okay, so we're just setting that up just like the previous one, right here. So we're going to go with that. Proximity search, good. We're going to tell it to do an enable proximity search. We're also going to search for the subfolders for references. Once that's done, you can just hit next, next, hit scan, and it's going to start going through there, looking at each file and trying to find its references in that structure. Okay, it says it searched for 6 references and 56 documents and it resolved 4 of them. So it did help a little bit running this scanref tool. And so if we go into data now, you can see that this land boundary file had a reference. It's got that little reference symbol right there. So okay, at this point in time, we'd be done with the upgrade. We would let the user know, hey, your files have been upgraded, and they're located here, and they should have no problem opening the file in ORD 1012. Now, certain files we don't upgrade. We don't upgrade drainage files. We don't upgrade corridor files. We told our users from the get-go that if you have corridor files, you just finish them out in SS10, or you start new in ORD with corridors. Corridors are very complicated to upgrade, and we decided early on not to upgrade any corridor files. If they have another file, civil geometry, we upgraded the file, but we didn't go in and upgrade the feature definition. It is a benefit to upgrade the feature definition because it's annotation aware, but if you don't do that, the civil geometry will still just work just fine. If they want their annotation to be annotation aware, then they will have to upgrade the feature definition. And I do have videos out there on the MoDOT site on how to upgrade civil geometry. So with that, that's pretty much the entire upgrade process that we use here at MoDOT. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or give me a call on my office phone. Thanks. Bye.